Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter where in the world you are tuning in from. You may be wondering, what is going on here? Your usual host, Nick, is here, and I'm here. Well, I'm here for 15 minutes anyway, just to get this show on the road. I have lots of questions for Nick about Rome so far, and also what is also still to come in Rome on the WTA side, and maybe even one or two broader thoughts on the last 7 days in women's tennis, and perhaps maybe the next 7 days too. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, John. I'm doing very well. I've definitely been intrigued by the absolute madness of the Rome WTA draw, or at least half of it. It's been an interesting week so far, and setting up some fascinating stories for next week.
Cool. I'm just posting in the live chat right now, so get your questions and comments in for Nick, because in 15 minutes he will be alone and very lonely and perhaps need your comfort, and your comfort can be provided both in comments and questions. So we'll address them probably in the second half of the show. So get them in right now. Don't worry, we won't be ignoring you, but we'll just address them when I'm gone. Anyway, Nick, you did say it's been chaotic, but there has been one person who has been serenely going through the draw, as only she knows. Give me your thoughts on Iga's 2 matches, I believe, that she's had so far.
Yeah, dominant, just completely dominant. She's dropped 2 games in 2 matches, and both of them were the opening 2 games against Alicia Sarenko today. These are ideal conditions for Iga Swiatek. We know she likes it in Rome. She's played the tournament 3 times and won it twice in her career. And the only time she lost was against Arantxa Rus in 2020. It was arguably, I don't think she's had a worse loss since in terms of kind of caliber of opponent. But she's and even then, like, it's interviews subsequently have come out of said that she was kind of having a bad day and she wasn't in a great place at the time. So yeah, slow clay court conditions. It's all about Swiatek, and she's done nothing really wrong in any of her matches that she's played so far. And the question is basically, who can get more than 2 games off her?
Will her next opponent be able to do so? I can see that it's to be decided. So who's she awaiting the winner of? Do you know?
Yeah, it's Donna Vekic and Ludmila Samsonova. So at the minute, Donna Vekic is serving for the match 5-2 up in the deciding set. So Samsonova won the first set 6-2. Vekic took the second on a tie break, and then is a game away potentially from booking a place with Iga Swiatek. I could see Vekic, they played last year in the San Diego final. Vekic took a set off her, but obviously very different conditions, not ones that necessarily favoured Swiatek, but I could see Vekic getting a few games, maybe.
Okay, so that's Iga tick, I would even suggest. I mean, maybe she'll be the broad shadow hanging over just about every single player on the WTA tour. So I'm sure we will be mentioning her again before this show is out. But I think we should begin really with her conqueror in Madrid, who came into this tournament, Aryna Sabalenka, as possibly the second favorite. I know that Damien, for example, was very keen to point out the conditions in Rome don't suit Sabalenka like they do in Madrid, and I get that. But there was one half of the draw that was much trickier than the other, in my opinion, with Krejcikova, for example, Ostapenko, who, of course, we'll be coming to shortly. I think on Jabeur as well, who we'll definitely be touching on too. All of these players, and I think, am I right in thinking of Rybakina, they're all in the same side of the draw with Iga, am I right?
Yeah, or they were anyway. So yeah, Krejcikova. Yeah. The only one of those who's still left is Rybakina,
who got a little bit lucky perhaps today in the fact that her opponent ended up retiring through injury, right?
Yeah, 4-3 up in the first set. So a little bit unfortunate for Kalinskaya and her fans. I mean, the only other name I'm looking at the top half of the draw who's still there, who might be eye-catching, is Badosa. But yeah, in the top half of the draw with Iga, there was, as you say, Krejcikova, Sakari, Jabeur. So to see, and no, those three names are all kind of gone now.
Is Sakari gone too?
Sakari's out. Sakari lost today.
Deary me. So it shows how far behind. You missed
She lost
a day in.
Androsheva at 7-5, 6-3. First match today.
That is a brutal draw. I'm just looking at her results now. That is a brutal draw, mind you, to play Vondrousova in the last 32. Yeah. Both of those are, given the right draw, in my opinion, potential finalists. But then I guess you could argue, with the exception of Iga, she's definitely a potential finalist in Rome. But I guess, right, with how crazy it has been, I mean, I know Coco Gauff went out. Did she go today, wasn't it? And I saw the match point. Was it yesterday? I saw the match point, and there was a forehand into the net. And, well, it is a bit of a broken record with Coco. Have you got any thoughts on Coco and where she's at? Because she's going to be dropping a lot of points, of course, if she doesn't make the French Open final. I'm
shocked that she lost it. I mean, like, Bushkova isn't bad. Like, Bushkova is a pretty solid player. She's got pedigree. But I didn't see the match. I wasn't able to see what happened. It did look like a little bit of a capitulation from what I was kind of seeing on Twitter. Sort of similar issues again with the Gauff forehand. And it kind of cost her a bit today. But, like, she was dominant against Putintseva. I saw the match. She beat Putintseva 6-love, 6-1, and Gauff controlled everything against an opponent who's historically given her a lot of problems. The forehand was working. There was a lot of variety. Everything was just clicking. I thought, okay, here we go. Potential finalist with the way this draw's going.
Yeah.
And then Bushkova happened today. So, yeah, a little concerned with how Gauff is looking going into this. She's 3 wins, 3 losses on clay so far this year. That's not great going into the French Open. And I'm struggling to see her going deep at Roland Garros. But if we're looking at potentially slower clay courts causing chaos, it's very hard to predict right now where she'd be at. But she's not one of my favorites right now.
Yeah. Okay, before we move away too quickly from Sabalenka, I want to talk about both Arena and the person who beat her as well. Of course, Kenin, who's a French Open finalist herself from 2020, am I right? Maybe 2020, where she lost to Iga, I believe, in that final. First of all, Sabalenka, where are we at? Does this mean we need to start pressing the panic button? Does it mean we need to start saying that she's not a contender in Paris, or where are we at?
No, we don't need to say she's not a contender. I mean, Damien is right. These court conditions don't suit her. She was a semi-finalist last year in Rome, and that was a big result for her. Honestly, I don't think she was quite at her best in the match that she lost, but I also think that her opponent played an excellent match, and I know we kind of seem to be building up for a grand reveal of who that opponent was. I don't think it's a panic button. I don't think Sabalenka's got high expectations. She's never been past the 3rd round of Roland Garros. I think she'll be at a massive disadvantage against much more comfortable clay court players anyway, because she'll be frustrated that her game, she can't overpower her opponents in the same way. But at the same time, I think it would take an experienced, comfortable clay courter to beat her right now.
What's her limit so far in terms of her career in Paris? She's never been beyond
third round.
Third round, yeah.
Third round.
Yeah. I mean, she's not made the 2nd week as yet. By the way, for those of you just tuning in, make sure you hit the like button. For those of you thinking, I don't want John on my screen, I don't want to see you, I just want to see Nick, you'll be pleased to know in 5 minutes I will be leaving. So get your questions in for Nick. Yeah. So get your questions in for Nick. Nick will be, for the second half of the show, will be on his own. So get your comments in, likes and subscribes and all that other stuff. Okay, so what about Kenin? I mean, I know she's now out, unfortunately, and this is the nature of the beast, that you have this incredible high of beating the world number 2 in Arena Sabalenka. But at least let's focus on some positives for her, because she's had a horrid couple of years, but there have been some shoots of recovery this year, right?
Yeah, and I think this is the biggest, most promising one. That, as I say, I said on Twitter after watching that match between Kenin and Sabalenka that That was a clay court masterclass from Kenin. She barely missed. She threw up all kinds of loopy balls to disrupt Sabalenka. Her movement was incredible. She ran down everything. Sabalenka, and just neutralize. It was able to neutralize everything that Sabalenka threw at her. Was able to throw at her. And that's someone, and she was playing like someone who is a Roland Garros runner-up in 2020. So definitely very comfortable on the clay. I was a little surprised for her to lose to Carolina. She's clearly not building that consistency back up again, which is worrying me a little bit, but she's shown that her old level is still there. And I think if she gets a confidence building run, we'll start seeing her more regularly and kind of higher up the rankings, because at the minute she's ranked outside the top 100. I am now hopeful we'll be seeing her back in the top 100 by the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. And really, I mean, she had before the Australian Open, I think she had a good run. Maybe she got to a final somewhere, maybe in New Zealand. I'm just trying to think. She had some wins anyway. And I thought, okay, that's nice. Then she ran into Azarenka in the first round in Melbourne. And I actually tipped her to go through in that Azarenka clash in the former Australian Opens. Of course, I got it wrong, as I often do. And of course, Azarenka went on to have an amazing tournament herself in getting to the semi-finals. But we saw lots of signs. She had a couple of more brutal draws, I believe, before she got a few more wins under her belt, Kenan. But really glad to see her getting these wins against top. I think it was her first win over a top 10 opponent in 2 or 3 years, I think, something like that. So we can see certainly some optimistic signs for Kenan. And I obviously no need to press the panic button just yet for Sabalenka. She will almost certainly be, I'm pretty sure she'll be on the opposite side of the draw to Iga. And anybody on the other side of the draw to Iga Swiatek will be thinking, I've got a chance. You know, I mean, I agree. Coco Gauff's form has really gone down in the last few months, but she's been in a French Open final before. You know, Sabalenka, world number 2, arguably just in talent alone, she's neck and neck with Iga. But I think Iga, obviously on this surface in particular, will have an advantage. But, you know, wherever, you know, you could go through Krejcikova, of course, a former winner. Krejcikova. Let's have a quick word on her and Ostapenko before I depart.
Yeah.
Because that match took place today and it was nuts. Nick, tell me more.
Yeah, that was a bonkers match. So I that's the main one I kind of caught today, because I thought, 2021 Roland Garros champion versus the 2017 Roland Garros champion. This is going to be interesting. Very similar conditions. It started off with standard Ostapenko misfiring, with Ostapenko having a bad day, misfiring, Krejcikova being solid and consistent. And then Ostapenko switched on at the same time as a few things started to irritate Krejcikova. So obviously Ostapenko's level going up would have rattled her a bit, but there were things in the crowd distracting her. It was one point where she was distracted by someone bringing their dog in. She just completely lost focus and then started making really uncharacteristic errors for her. Still managed to take it to a tie break, but it went from Krejcikova leading 5-1 to 6-5 Ostapenko. Krejcikova holds serve, take it to a tie break, goes 2-love up in the tie break, loses the tie break 7-2, and loses the next set 6-love. It was a complete mess. I genuinely think that's one of the worst performances I've seen from Barbora Krejcikova, and it's uncharacteristic. And I think something was bothering her. But yeah, that's not great preparation for Roland Garros. It's not a great confidence builder. On the opposite end of the spectrum, can't rule out Ostapenko from making the second week again now, but we have to see, because Ostapenko generally has 1 or 2 big wins and then her level drops and she can't sustain it. So we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, not a great day at the office for Barbora Krejcikova, but maybe again, not a panic button yet, because I'm just going to call it a bad day that happens sometimes and things going against her.
Yes, and of course, Nick, just under a week ago, released his WTA power rankings ahead of the French Open. And of course, the next 7 days, I'm sure, will have an influence on the final one before the French Open. I say it'll have an influence. Between 2 and 10, it'll have an influence, trust me. Iga, barring injury, Iga could lose her next match. And I think we're pretty sure that she'll stay at number one, but you never know. But listen, I have to go. So listen, audience, before I do though, I just want to get you guys. I can see Sean has joined us. Thanks for joining us, Sean. Make sure you hit the like button. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And please get your questions in for Nick, because he's on his own now. I'm sure he's going to go off on a certain tangent, maybe even a few. And at the end of the show, he'll want to address some of your comments and your questions. So get those in. And Nick, enjoy however long it takes, whether you're here for 5 minutes or 20 minutes. It's all good by me. But take care.
Thanks, John. Thanks for coming on. And great chatting times with you as always. I'm just going to share the stream on my Twitter very quickly, cool. But I will kind of talk and do that at the same time. But yeah, please throw questions at me. This is an Ask Nick Anything. Try and stick it to women's tennis, but I'll have a look at the questions I get, and I will see if I will, and I will, if it's something I think, oh, that might be fun to talk about, then yeah, let's talk about it. So throw anything at me. Yeah, what a week. What a week at in Rome. As we said, we touched on some of the stories, the main stories being big names going out. John touched on my power rankings for earlier, and actually if we run quickly down through them, like number 1 was Swiatek, number 2 was Sabalenka, number 3 was Krejcikova, number 4 was Jabeur, 5 Pegula, 6 Sakkari. They're all out. So I'm expecting some minor shakeups. I think number 7 was Kudermetova. She's still in. She is going to be playing Marie Bushkova, the conqueror of Coco Gauff, in the 4th round. Gauff was number 8 on the list, so she's out. Number 9 is Daria Kasatkina. She's still in the Rome draw. She had a tough one, though. She ended up having to beat Julie Grabher in a deciding tiebreak, which I looked like really close match. So Kasatkina will be playing Ostapenko. That's going to be a massive clash on styles. And this slow clay is probably going to give Kasatkina her best chance of beating Ostapenko. She's not going to be overpowered as easily. That being said, Ostapenko, as shown today, but also during her French Open 2017 run, can blast anyone off any surface, regardless. Regardless of the surface and regardless of conditions. Just finishing off this, and then I will have a look and see what we've got coming in. Cool. So, all right. Hey, Max. I don't see who can. Yeah, don't see that. You don't see who could be a tricky opponent for an Iga Roland Garros. No, I mean, like, yeah, I don't. Yeah, barring injury, I don't think there's anyone that I see beating her. But then, we've got Zhang Qinwen, who pushed her in Paris. If she's got if she's managing to hit through the conditions, she could do someone who's got the power that it doesn't matter. Maybe someone like Vondrousova, who can be a bit tricksy. Also like slow court conditions, someone who's having a very good day could take a set. But yeah, if you mean tricky as in someone who could maybe take a set off Iga or push her in too close, yeah, the list is not immediately obvious. I think if we went down the WTA rankings, maybe we'd pick out a couple of names. Is it crazy to suggest that Ostapenko could reach the final in Paris? No, she's done it once before. Ostapenko hasn't been able to, since that Paris run and a run to the Wimbledon semis in 2018, she's not really sustained a run for more than a week, I would say. But who knows? Clearly those two examples shows that she's perfectly capable of it. It's not crazy. The thing is with Ostapenko is that she's just too damn unpredictable. So I don't want to definitively say anything. That being said, this result in Rome, I'm not going to say anything yet because I need to sit down and work it out. But I would not be surprised if you see Yelena Ostapenko on the pre-Roland Garros power ranking. That's all I'm saying. Or she's going to be very close. Definitely let me know what you think about Ons' situation. Ons Jabeur, really unfortunate to get Paula Badosa as her first match back from injury. Because Badosa hasn't got past sort of the last 16 of she went out the last 16 in Madrid. She lost in the quarterfinals of Stuttgart to Sakkari Sabalenka. But they're both very good players in conditions that suited them, particularly clay for Sakkari, but also with Sabalenka and the indoor faster conditions, that was always going to favour her. That being said, Badosa pushed her. So it was a nightmare draw for Jabeur in the opening round, and I think if you've got an informal opponent, when you don't have form, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to struggle. So it would have been great for Ons to get some wins under the belt, build a little bit more momentum going to Roland Garros. She is now no longer unbeaten on clay in terms of having a match point converted against her. That's going to affect things going into Roland Garros. Maybe it'll enable her to run under the radar a little bit. Maybe having this extra week where she's not playing will aid that recovery from the calf tear. But we'll see how that goes. Ons Jabeur, still a contender. I would say you can't rule her out, but exactly how far she can get is going to be limited to how well her recovery is going. Paula Badosa, she's building confidence. I think she's building for something. She went to the quarterfinals of Roland Garros. She's a former quarterfinalist at Roland Garros from 2021. That was, I think, on her debut. That's an impressive debut, and that's someone who's going to be strong in Paris. That could be someone who could push Iga Swiatek. Paula Badosa, given her fighting spirit, I could imagine her giving Iga a run for her money. Maybe not beating her, but providing her with a clay court rival who's got maybe a little bit more form, a little bit of confidence. And that's been building up. Krejcikova is someone I've always said could also do the same thing, but Krejcikova doesn't seem to be high on confidence right now. Any other names people want to throw at me? I know there's like 11 of you. There's 10 of you on YouTube. There's 1 of you on Twitch watching. Throw some questions at me. Throw some player names at me. Let's talk about what you think. Any questions that you might have. Story-wise, what we've had. Jean Chin Wen. Oh yes, John had her coming through into the semi-finals of the tournament. I actually had Karolina Pliskova because I thought she would. She's a Rome specialist. She'd be a lot more confident on this location, but she had a very, very bad day on her opening round. Zhang is someone who people have been saying keeping an eye on. I know Vanch has said something similar. As I think he's making her favorite for the final now. Zhang on clay, very comfortable on slower conditions. That's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see what she can do. An all Chinese 4th round between her and Wang Zhu. See how that goes. And then if Zhang comes through, I'd expect to be playing Kudermetova. I think we're still in for some intriguing clay court battles coming up. But yeah, this could be Zhang's big chance to have a big breakthrough result in her career and get to a 1,000 final and mark her as a top tier contender for many years to come. Rather than just a potential contender, because we know how talented she is, but there's plenty of people who've been marked out as talented who've taken a while to kind of really showcase it. This would put her on the map really early on her career if she can go deep, which I think, given this draw, is definitely possible. Other names, others results. We talked about Kenin and her comeback. Sabalenka, not clearly still have issues with the conditions. Madison Keys in the 4th round. Wasn't expecting that. Did benefit from a walkover. Is a former, has done well at Rome before. Or maybe she hasn't. But she... I'm going to check her stats actually before I and confirm I'm actually right on that. Before I kind of make any too wild a claim on Madison Keys. But that's a big name that's worth keeping an eye on. She's not bad on clay. I know she's kind of thought as being a preferred fast court player, but she's, had decent results. She's a semi-finalist at Roland Garros in 2018. Actually, she's the only Grand Slam she's not reached a semi-final of is Wimbledon. Weirdly, given again she would have a perfect game for grass. Italian Open finalist in 2016. Who would she have lost to? That would have been Serena Williams. She lost to in that match. That's how long Madison Keys has been around for. Former Rome finalist, someone else to keep an eye on. Sloane Stephens may be beginning to build up some momentum as well. Another American, former Roland Garros finalist, 2018. The person who beat Madison Keys in the 2017 US Open final. She beat former semi-finalist at Roland Garros, Nadia Podoroska, in the 1st round, quite convincingly. Stephens is coming off actually a very, very good run in a lower level tournament, a WTA 125K event in San Malo. Actually won the title, which, given that she was struggling to win matches up to that point, is a massive confidence builder for her. But she ran into Victoria Azarenka, who does seem to be a bit of a thorn in her side at the minute. But maybe some signs of a bit of a Stephens resurgence ahead of Roland Garros. That would be interesting. Ghosty, got a question about Kenin and her victory over Sabalenka. Is an indication she's back and could compete for a slam again. If you'd asked me in the immediate aftermath of that match, the answer would have been yes. And probably on clay. But or any tournament really. Like she won the Australian Open. I would hope so. However, her immediate loss to Kalinina tells me no, she's not there ready for slam contention yet, but she can't be far off. I think she just needs a run of consistent wins to convince me. Haven't talked about Garcia yet, actually. And it's kind of worrying times for the world number 4 and the top French player. Again, another shock exit from the tournament. We've talked about a lot of big names going out. And in fact, actually, Iga Swiatek is the only top 6 seed left in the draw. And she's the number 1. So the gap is to the rest of the field is opening up. Garcia, it's not ideal. Her form's been getting worse and worse. It was patchy coming in, and now she's struggling to win matches. Garcia, losing to, she's beat Bogdan in 3 sets, and then she lost to Camilla Osorio in the 3rd round. I will say that Osorio is a very strong clay court player and a very talented player, and a star of the future. So not that big a shock to me that she won that match, but it's not ideal for Garcia going into her home major, where she's going to be having a lot of home support. She's going to be hyped to potentially win the thing by maybe the wider media. I would imagine the dream French media final would be Swiatek versus Garcia. And if Garcia's in the final, then that means she's got her form back, which is great. But in this situation, I think she might struggle to make second week. But it depends. She's not happy right now. But I hope that things will improve, and she's got opportunities for things to improve as you get into grass, where she is definitely very comfortable. But yeah, not great times for Garcia right now. Dreamt was talking about Mukova or Vondrousova goes deep in Roland Garros. I mean, Vondrousova loves a clay court, is a former Roland Garros finalist. I remember everyone being a bit surprised when she beat Jo Konta in the semis to get to the final, but she's kind of backed that up since. She's Olympic silver medalist. definitely very tricky opponent on clay, and I'd say this Rome is going to give her a lot of confidence going into Roland Garros. I definitely could see her going deep in that tournament. She's in the 4th round at the minute. She's going to be playing Elena Rybakina next. I would imagine she's going to give Rybakina a massive headache in that 4th round match. Mukova similarly. Again, Mukova's good on any surface. She's a great player. Again, probably a little bit stronger on natural surfaces. So grass as well. And she's definitely building her form back up. Mukova's difficult to predict because, again, she will go on a run of 1 or 2 match wins and then kind of falter, run out of steam a little bit. So I'm interested to see how she does against Badosa in their 4th round match. But yeah, I completely agree, Jim. I could see a scenario where they go... so where she goes deep in Roland Garros, like both of them going deep in this year's French Open, but neither are in form where it's easy to predict that right now. John's mentioning about Sakkari. I know we touched on her, but where are we at with the former French Open semi-finalist? Contender on clay still, but again, someone else it's hard to predict because of her lack of consistent form. I would caution against anyone betting on her to win the thing. But I can also likely see a scenario where we see her in the quarterfinals or even the semis, given the right draw. Little unfortunate maybe today with a bit of a tough loss again to a very tricky opponent in Vondrousova. Not a bad loss for her at all. So yeah, I think where are we at? Don't get. I wouldn't say don't put anything on her going beyond quarters or semis. Will Iga ever win Wimbledon? That might be more of a question for when the grass comes around. But I would say she won Junior Wimbledon. So she's got the potential on grass. She's not too uncomfortable with it, but she has to beat a top 60 player in the world on the surface. She's never beaten a player ranked in the top 60 on grass. She needs to get over that hurdle before we start talking about her as a serious contender soon. As she gains more experience throughout her career, I could see her maybe winning Wimbledon when she hits her 30s. Or gets nearer to her 30s. She's only 21 right now. She's getting to 22 this year. I think she can. Will it happen? I think there'll be a lot more stronger and more confident grass court players out there, and it will really depend on the future generations and how comfortable they are on grass. Yeah, Rybakina's still in. She's a top 10 player. Yeah, absolutely. She's ranked number 7 at the minute. So always going to be a contender. I've always said that she's better on clay than people give her credit for. I'm interested to see how she copes with Vondrousova in the last 16. I don't see her beating Iga on Rome or Roland Garros. And we're talking a lot about Roland Garros. We're in the middle of a tournament at the minute. But that's what happens when a big name goes out, and the next question for them is, what about Roland Garros? What about Roland Garros? Who is my call to make the Rome final? Well, I'm looking at the bottom half of the draw. I think that's because the top half, it's Iga Swiatek. Because you go, Donna Vekic is now 1, so she is going to be Iga's opponent. I think Iga beats Vekic. I think she will beat both Vondrousova. I think Vondrousova is more likely to test her in the quarterfinal than Rybakina. I definitely think Iga will be more comfortable than Rybakina. And I think Vondrousova will test her, but I don't think she'll have enough to stop her. If she gets Badosa or Ostapenko in the semis, that could get interesting. Again, Badosa's fighting spirit, very comfortable on clay. I could see a scenario where they really push Iga. And if Ostapenko's on a roll, we know that Iga doesn't have a great head-to-head against her. Again, though, I just feel like Iga's so comfortable in Rome. It's going to take a very special effort to beat her. I think Badosa and Ostapenko are capable of producing that level in a semi-final, but I'm not sure are capable of it. I think Badosa might have a lower ceiling than Ostapenko. We'll have to see. Also, Ostapenko is just too difficult to predict. If it ends up being Kasatkina in that semi-final, or Mukova, definitely Iga. So I'd say Iga heavy favourite with some caveats that there are some players out there who maybe could test her. And it's not a slam dunk 100%. This is what's happening. So that comes down to who do I think is in this coming through the second half of the draw. I would be very excited for a lot of them. I could see Kudermetova doing it. I'd say on paper right now, on form, she's probably the more likely. But I also like the hype that John and Vance are giving Zhang Qinwen is very hard to ignore. So I could see this, but then we've hyped Zhang Qinwen plenty of times, and then she's come up short. So maybe she'd run out of steam in the quarterfinal against a Kudermetova or a Bushkova, maybe more like a Kudermetova. Keys is still in the mix as a former finalist in Rome, but I think that walkover against Azarenka and maybe a slightly not particularly tough draw might eventually hurt her. She might be a bit undercooked. I'm fascinated by the 7th section of the draw. 4th round, Camila Osorio against Beatriz Haddad-Maia. Haddad-Maia is obviously a very qualified player. She's the 12th seed. Is going to be comfortable on clay because that's what she grew up with in Brazil. Osorio, another South American, great win over Garcia, another good win over Martic. Is this her time to break through? I'm not really answering the question, but I think that if you ask me right now, pick a player who's going to play Iga Swiatek in the final of Rome, I'm going to go boring and say Veronika Kudermetova. And just because I think she's on paper the one to watch, but I do think Zhang's got a really good shout. I think Osorio would be a really exciting opponent, and I think Beatriz Haddad-Maia shouldn't be ruled out either. Okay. People are asking about my views on Mira Andreeva, which I think is how you pronounce it. First of all, is she going to have to qualify for the French Open? Yes, because she wasn't in the top 100 or anywhere near the top 100 a few weeks ago when the cutoff happened. I believe she should be in the qualifying draw. Unless they give her a wild card into the main draw, she's going to have to qualify. So I hope we see her in the Roland Garros draw. I'm very excited about Andreeva and what she can produce. I thought she was excellent in Madrid and basically was just overpowered by Sabalenka as anyone would be in that situation. Sabalenka is very comfortable in Madrid. It suits her game. So yeah, Andreeva. I really hope she's in Roland Garros, and I think that she could get a couple of match wins in and continue to impress. Seeing some other comments at the minute coming in. Max hoping Coco can defend her points. It would be nice. I don't think she's going to defend all of them. I think she's going to take a ranking drop, to be honest, and that probably will reflect where she's at right now, to be honest. Is Osorio beating Haddad-Maia, or does the dream die tomorrow? It's going to be a close one. I think that one's going to be a 3-setter. I can't call it. I think genuinely it's going to be close, and I'm really excited for it. I need to have a look at the order of play because obviously I am working my day job tomorrow, which means that I won't be able to necessarily watch every single match, but I'm going to see what's going to be on in the evening when I get back, because that will definitely be interesting. So let's have a look. Order of play tomorrow on my TNNS app. And this is the WTA order of play. What is going to happen? tomorrow. So let's have a look. What have I got to look forward to? Oh yeah, sorry. So Sorio and Haddad Maia playing at 11:20. So sadly, we'll have to miss that one. Got a couple of women's matches on in the evening though. So Paola Badosa and Karolina Mukova is happening at 6 p.m. my time. This is assuming, of course, that Rhone is not completely washed out, as the weather forecast is potentially suggesting. But as a Brit, I'm used to the rain completely washing out the tennis. And I think the Italians are as well. I think also it's a bit of a problem in Paris. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who's probably followed it. But I do remember a few kind of very washed out French Opens over the years. But yeah, evening in terms of matches, I will actually be able to watch tomorrow. Paola Badosa and Karolina Mukova at 6 p.m. my time, 7 p.m. Italian time. And then Swiatek and Vekic, 7:30 my time, which I think would be interesting. Just having a look and seeing. Yeah, I'd say definitely right now the WTA matches are more interesting than the ATP matches right now. Yeah, packed afternoon actually for because the entire last 16 is scheduled to happen tomorrow. This seems to be following a very similar schedule to Madrid. So yeah, at first up you've got Zheng versus Wang and at the same time as Keys versus Kalinina. Then you've got Osorio Serrano against Haddad Maia, which will probably then Bushkova against Kudermetova, then Ostapenko versus Kasatkina. A little disappointed to miss that one, not going to lie. Vondrousova versus Rybakina would be sort of the mid to late afternoon match. And then you've got Badosa, Mukova, Swiatek, Vekic, as we're being shown here. Max has a prediction on that she doesn't think Vekic could take a chance on Swiatek. I think I agree, to be honest. So yeah, I think there's 8 WTA matches actually happening tomorrow. How will Rybakina play against Marketa? That's what I'm interested in, because I think Marketa Vondrousova is going to be able to disrupt Rybakina's attempts to kind of hit flat. Actually, I need to check something. Who I think, if I remember right, yes, no, they didn't play at the Olympics. They're both actually Olympic semi-finalists. So I'm quickly trying to remember who won that match. Who was it? But I think Rybakina was beaten by Bencic, and Vondrousova beat Svitolina in the Tokyo Olympic tennis. So they never actually met during the Olympics. Rybakina ended up missing out on a medal, losing to Svitolina in the bronze medal match. And Vondrousova ended up losing to Bencic in the final. So, yeah, fascinating situation there. I think, although I keep on saying that Rybakina is underrated on clay, I think Vondrousova on clay is more dangerous than people. They're both more dangerous than people give them credit for. I think Vondrousova will disrupt Rybakina and frustrate her, and I think she's going to win that match. So yeah, that's your first prediction from me for the day. My other prediction, actually no, my other one was Swiatek beating Vekic in straight sets. So far, working my way down the draw, Badosa Mukova. I think Mukova's going to run out of steam. I think Badosa will get to the quarterfinals. Ostapenko Kasatkina. I think Ostapenko is building something here. She's building form. And I think Kasatkina is kind of scrapped away here. I think it'll go 3 sets, or maybe get a tiebreak as one of them if it's straight sets. I'm going to give Ostapenko the edge. I'm going to give Ostapenko the edge in the 4th round against Kasatkina. Bushkova and Kudermetova. I think Bushkova did well to get this far, but I think Kudermetova is going to beat her in that match. I think Zheng will beat Wang. I think Osorio and Haddad Maia. That's really, really hard. because my head is telling me Haddad Maia, but my heart is telling me Osorio. My gut instinct. Ostapenko, friend of the show, yes. I'm going to go with my gut, which means I'm going to be wrong. And I'm going to say Osorio is going to beat Haddad Maia. And then I think Madison Keys will beat Angelina Kalinina in their 4th round match. I think Keys will then lose to whoever wins out of Osorio and Haddad Maia. I think quarterfinals will be difficult to predict, but maybe follow me on Twitter and see if I try to throw something out there. But yeah, so that's my predictions for how I think this 4th round is going to go. It's despite the draw falling apart a little bit in terms of the seeds, we've actually got some really, really good, really big names in there and some good stories, some people making some, big breakthroughs. Vekic is a player who I'm surprised doesn't have a bigger result on her record. She deserves to be there. Vondrousova, Rybakina, Badosa, Mukova, Ostapenko, Kasatkina, Kudermetova, Haddad Maia, Keys. They're all players who are, I would consider, top tier players who none of whom I would be surprised winning a major anywhere, to be honest. I don't think if anyone won a major, it would be a shock. And I actually think you would have to say all of them would be contenders on a long list going in. Definitely at 1,000 as well. Bushkova is in a similar category to Vekic, very good player. A little bit surprised that maybe her CV's not a little better. And then you've got players like Zhang and Osorio who are potentially set on having some breakthrough results very early in their career. Really exciting times. Yes, we have a photo of my visit to the Billie Jean King Cup when it was in Coventry. And I haven't looked at the chat because I've been looking at the draw, and now everyone's talking about apparently. I think John must have shown the wrong Twitter account or something. John, I think we should get Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys on and hope he's into tennis because that would just be hilarious. I'm pretty confident that when you Google Nick Carter, Backstreet Boys Nick Carter comes up first. I don't know. I've not tried. I'm not the kind of person who Googles his own name, especially since it's fairly common name, I would imagine. Max, yeah, come and join the fun on Twitter. My Twitter's generally pretty positive. I know Twitter doesn't have the best reputation. You can get in some really stupid arguments on there. And there are some people out there who just want to tell you you're wrong all the time. I tend to ignore them, to be honest. I just don't engage. Despite the temptation to argue, your Twitter, the key to Twitter is you get fed the things that you respond to. If you are only responding to stuff you're arguing with, it's going to be awful. If you only respond to stuff that you genuinely like, it's a nice place. That's Nick Carter's guide to surviving Twitter right there. And yes, I can see that I might have said Anna Karenina by mistake, but I'm pretty sure I said Angelina Kalinina. Okay. There's one more story from the tournament that I really, really want to mention because we've been talking about shocks. And there's one name we haven't actually mentioned yet. Jessica Pegula. Jessica Pegula, 3rd seed, lost to Taylor Townsend. And to be honest, I was kind of hoping Townsend would still be in the tournament. She nearly got through against Wong. She lost a very close match in the end of a very tight final set. It was a really topsy-turvy one. Lots of momentum swings. I want to talk about Townsend and Pegula. I'm talking about Townsend right now. Townsend, I think any big result for her is always good news for the tour. given what happened to her in her very early in her career. And it's all about proving, I think the story of Taylor Townsend is proving the doubters wrong. And now she's got 2 big top 10 wins, having also beaten Simona Halep at the US Open. Her game is very suited to clay. I'm very excited by her doubles results with Leylah Fernandez. There's a good chance they're going to build a regular partnership and try and get to the WTA finals, maybe win some big titles. They've already got some quite deep in 1,000 tournaments. Taylor Townsend is a player that I would love to kind of have a few more big results, not just sort of one-off wins over top 10 players, showing she's very capable, but maybe have a quarter-final in a big event against her name. That would be cool. Jessica Pegula, maybe a little disappointed not to get a bit further. Not to go a bit further, I think Townsend played a great game, and that's what it takes to beat Pegula. But again, another player who's now coming into Roland Garros with less than ideal form, having lost unexpectedly to Kudermetova in Madrid, where she was the defending finalist, and early on in Rome for Pegula. So we're starting to see a little bit of a loss of form for Pegula. I still think she's likely to go deep in Roland Garros, but maybe her ceiling is starting to show a little bit, or maybe there's a chance that she's losing a little bit of consistency, a little bit of form. But the good news is that she could easily get it back. So let's see how it goes. I think the purple backlight ghost is due to my computer screen, because that's where my camera is. And I looks like you've had some experience with Twitter Ghost. And yes, whilst I would agree that you shouldn't get into any what's the word? Echo chambers. Try and avoid echo chambers. Don't be afraid to be challenged. There's nothing wrong with being challenged and having a difference of opinion. It's how you conduct yourself, and if people and how you respond to it is, let's have a constructive conversation versus I'm going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to make you feel bad about yourself. And there's a difference in how you conduct yourself. So that would be kind of my point about Twitter, is there's a difference between constructive engagement with opposing views. There's nothing wrong with following people with opposing views. And I would recommend that. But yeah, that's what I'm going to say about my little guide to Twitter. But yes, just but yeah, everyone's excited about Sinner versus Shevchenko. I don't have that match on. It sounds like it's an interesting match right now. So clearly, Yannick Sinner is giving Italian home fans something to cheer for. I think they're probably a little disappointed that their home favourites in the WTA side didn't make it through. Camilla Giorgi was the last woman standing, and she went out to Mukova in what was an interesting match, because Giorgi was well ahead in the first set and then lost it on a tiebreak. Like, she had set points to win it and lost the match. Mukova also beat Trevisan, so she's kind of taken out the 2 big Italian names on the WTA side. So I will... but yeah, maybe Mukova's not going to be the flavour of the month with Italian fans, who I have to say are a little bit rowdy and a little bit. They tend to misbehave. They don't have a problem with just walking around between points and between serves and don't see a problem with it. Definitely not afraid to put players off. Maybe it's just the Rome crowd though, because the Turin crowd is a little bit better behaved, but maybe that's because there's no Italians or haven't been many Italians involved, which I would expect there to be going forward with Sinner and Musetti and a few more years of Berrettini being in the mix. Luca Nardi as well, someone coming through with a lot of talent from Italy. Yeah, and obviously we're talking about got questions about when the next match live stream is. I'm excited for hopefully coming on and bringing us something at some point. Yeah, just let me know. I'm sure John and I will probably compare diaries and see when we can do some coverage. I'll definitely be looking forward to that. But yeah, keep an eye on us for all things Rome and the Italian Open across the men's and the women's. John, Max has already said that she's based in Las Vegas, so so we're looking at kind of an 8-hour difference from GMT, 9-hour difference from CET. So if we're covering evening matches, then well, the opening women's match, well, the opening matches in the evening would be 10 a.m. your time, which is Badosa and Mukova. Also at the same time as Tsitsipas versus Sonego, which I could see getting very rowdy again with the crowds. And then the evening match, the late evening match, Swiatek versus Vekic, due to get underway, would be 8:30 p.m. Italian time, probably about 11:30 a.m. Las Vegas time for Max. So yes, got yourself a nice sort of morning, provided you don't have to go to work, which is the only real downside there. And of course, does depend on the weather in Rome, because as I said, it doesn't look promising. Seeing a lot of photos again on Twitter of rain clouds moving in. So I think you could wake up tomorrow, if those of you who are in America, and find that most of the matches haven't even been played yet, which will be very entertaining to keep across anyone who is covering any matches this week. All right, I think I've covered all the big stories. I've done some predictions. I've talked tennis with you, and it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for throwing all your questions at me. It's been a lot of fun talking tennis with you and having a bit of a Q&A. I'm glad that it didn't get too personal. That's always the risk with this kind of thing. If you're new, subscribe, follow us. We want to get to 2,000 subscribers, and talk tennis with as many of you as possible. We've got a great community here. I have a tremendous amount of fun having a bit of banter with Ghost and Max and Jane. She's not here tonight, but hopefully she'll catch up with us later. So hi if you're catching up with us, Jane. And obviously our other regulars too. ATP Weekly is coming up shortly. That's going to be a fun episode, I think. There's definitely some big stories to talk about from Rome, particularly if there's anything to go by with this Yannick Sinner match, which I'm now just going to quickly Google the score of, because I don't know what's going on. Oh, Sinner's about to serve for the match. Okay, so it's not that dramatic. It's just that one rally. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. I'll be back next week to talk about the Rome final. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens. It's always GMT. Yeah. Love it, Ghosty. And maybe we need to start introducing TTT, Talking Tennis Time. But that would be all the time for me. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good day wherever you are in the world. And we'll speak soon.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.